You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katie.
I almost forgot my line. We were halfway through it, and I was like, did I say that in the right order?
How does this go again?
It's like unsolved oh, man. I think it's because I'm not focusing on the mic. I started looking around at stuff. The Christmas tree caught my eye, and then the mugshots. And
speaking of mugshots, talking about our podcast and how Alcatraz is your new personality is my new personality.
I love that.
I did mention the podcast a lot over Thanksgiving, specifically our Alcatraz episodes. And then, of course, we got into some really interesting discussions about bad people and the bad things that they do and the mental health lens that we like to look at and prisons in general, because my future stepsister-in-law is a nurse. And when she was in nursing school, she did a rotation in a prison.
Okay.
And I think that was part of her psych rotation, actually.
Oh, wow.
So...
very interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too, because I hadn't heard of. Makes sense that that would be a possibility.
Yeah.
Because my understanding is you kind of just go where you're told.
Yeah.
Because I have one friend who her psych rotation was in the actual psych ward of a hospital.
Right.
So I just kind of assumed that's where it would be. But
yeah,
anywhere would be probably a good experience, right? I just love still the thing that I learned from one friend that one of the doctors said, I feel like I've said it on the podcast before, but don't tell them that there aren't any ducks in the room. Just help them shoo them out.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm like, I just love that saying. I'm like, it makes so much sense. And
yeah. And even if you think about it in perspective of
it can
your own stuff, because that's what I tell Jarek. I'm like, don't tell me that I'm being crazy, or I don't know. Just be the rational person and help me figure out how to rationalize the thing I'm being irrational about.
Yeah, well, if I'm on an anxiety, you can apply it to a lot of things, but if you're on an anxiety spiral and you're like, well, what about this? And okay, well, I'll talk you through, let's go down that rabbit hole. And
yeah. Instead of saying that anxiety doesn't exist, or that thing that you're anxious about,
it's not going to happen.
Isn't a thing. Yeah.
That probably won't happen. Probably, but
in my head, it's already happened.
Or it's a very likely possibility, or whatever. Okay, well, let's explore that avenue.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if that happens, it probably won't, but if it does, this is how we can react to it. So now, see, you're prepared. Let's move on. What's another possible?
Yeah.
How this is going to go?
Yeah. Very nice.
That might work. I don't know.
I think I forgot to give a shout out to our friend of the show who doesn't listen, my coworker Taylor, who actually suggested the Alcatraz episode. Little did he know what he did. And a couple weeks ago, he was thrifting, because me and him thrift separately and then share our treasures at work.
Yeah.
My treasure. And we're both into very different things, so it's fun. But he
corndles.
I know. But we know what to look out for each other. I look out for Goosebumps books for him and old VHS tapes, and he looks out.
What kind of VHS tapes? Because I've got some he can have.
Oh,
Disney, Disney classics.
I have a bunch of those too. I don't think he's into those. He likes Nickelodeon classics, which are harder to find.
Yeah,
but he apparently looks out for Alcatraz for me, because he texted me the other day or a couple weeks ago and sent me a picture of a book. I was gonna say it's over there, but it's not. It's in my bedroom. And he's like, would you want this book? And it was, I think it was, that one's Escape from Alcatraz, so it must be Escaping the Rock, or it was the one that was written by Ernie Lageson's son, so one of the guards' sons. And so it was one of the ones I'd used in my research. And I was like, yes, buy it. If it's 50 cents or, whatever. Because he was at Goodwill. So he bought it for me. And then a few minutes later, he's like, oh, I just noticed it's signed by the author. And I was like, ah!
I was about to say, tell me that it's signed.
I was like, why are all of these Alcatraz books signed, but I'll take it. So now I have 2 books on Alcatraz that are signed by their authors. Yeah. And he asked me, he's like, did you give me a shout out on the podcast? I should have just said yes. Like he would know. Like he would know. But, anyways. Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
I had a pretty good Thanksgiving, yeah. I got to see both sets of in-laws. So I got to see father-in-law and his side of the family. Mm-hmm. And then I got to see mother-in-law and her side of the family.
Nice.
So Walker got to see lots of family.
Yes.
And he was spoiled. It's like, yeah, this is the time to spoil him because, you know, it's too much, you know, not too much longer until we have to kind of tone it down. Otherwise, it'll turn him into a spoiled brat. But, like, right now, you can spoil the crap out of him.
Yeah. Well, I got to see my parents and my in-laws, so which was nice. And my dog got spoiled, so because everyone loved her. And then today she was very sad because everyone was gone. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. But now we're here. It's Sunday. We all go back to work Monday.
I've been working all week.
I go back to work Monday. Jarek starts his new job tomorrow.
That's so exciting.
I'm very excited for him. Mostly for our family, for getting a paycheck again. And I miraculously have an episode ready for us that I did in 2 days.
Again, it's not a miracle. You're just a badass. You can host Thanksgiving for a stupid amount of people and get an episode done. So.
Well, also miraculously, I looked up my pronunciations.
Oh, okay. Well, that is miraculous.
I may have done that 15 minutes ago, but I still did it. And I didn't write down any of my announcements, but I remembered that I have one, which is a content warning. And I'm very sorry ahead of time. Okay, so...
How many children die?
Just one.
Okay. I mean, not that...
I mean...
well, one is fine.
It's not a... I'll leave it at that. I'm going to rate the episode PG-13. If you're younger than that, maybe. If you're like 7 or 8, maybe don't listen. There's some not great stuff. It's mostly just about the graphic nature of the murder that happens. Okay? Murder. All right. So this is, by the way, episode 190. So close to 200. This is the episode. This is the story of William Heirens.
All right.
That was one of the names I looked up how to pronounce. Heirens. I was like, Heirens.
I was a little worried that you were going to say William Hyman. I don't know why, but the high start, I was like, don't say Hyman.
We couldn't get through that episode because we'd be giggling. Yeah. If we did, I would not be calling him William at all through, like, because I used first names throughout. Yeah.
Well, kind of like Warden Dumbass. I don't remember his actual name, but I did talk about him when I was talking with my future stepsister-in-law.
Warden Dumbass.
Like, Warden Dumbass.
Yeah, you're like,
he has a name.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter because he's a dumbass.
I listened to a dollop today that was about the history of San Quentin. Very interesting and not at all like the history of Alcatraz. Okay. So, William George Heirens was born on November 15th, 1928. So, he's a little close to Thanksgiving baby. To George and Margaret Heirens in Evanston, Illinois.
Would you say November what?
November 15th.
Oh, okay. That's close to my dad's birthday.
There you go. So, he was the first of 2 children. And Margaret, I read... that by the time he was born, she like already knew that marrying George was like not a great idea, but it was also a dream of hers to have 6 children, and she was like, I'm gonna stick it out. So just take that information as it is.
I don't.
She doesn't have 6 children, if that makes you feel better.
You did tell me that he was the oldest of 2.
Yes, she only has 2. I don't know why it was a dream of hers to have 6, because that sounds like a nightmare. But I don't know.
Pretty happy with the one. I might take a second one, but I'm going shopping for that one.
Yeah.
I made one. The rest will be store bought.
Well, William, which I'm not going to say this because I don't know, but being her first child, he was like really active, just getting into everything, generally very curious, kind of mischievous. He was the opposite of her second child. Like, she was that person.
That's how it usually goes.
Yeah. Like, she had a second one that was just like super chill and easy. And so he wasn't like a bad kid. Mm-hmm. He was just like
a handful,
especially compared to the second one. Mm-hmm. As he got older, he became interested in mechanics.
I hope that picked up. I doubt it did,
I hope it did too. Jarek's listening to the Bills game out there, and I told him to keep me updated.
That's one way to do it.
I implied via text. I specified.
You said text me the score.
I meant at the end of the game, but whatever.
Or just periodic updates.
Or just scream this. Yeah.
That works too.
That works too. He's interested in mechanics. He likes to take things apart, put them back together. He started doing science experiments. Some of them were not successful. Some of them were explosive. Eventually, he began building little inventions, such as cardboard wings that did not work, or a radio set for his bicycle, which did work. So he's like, trial and error.
What is it? I didn't fail 999 times. I didn't fail. I found 999 ways not to make a light bulb or whatever it was.
He's just curious. And his mother said, quote, he hated inactivity, which makes me think maybe he had a touch of...
I don't think it was a touch, dear. I think he had a whole heaping spoonful.
Yeah. Well, but
don't say a touch of ADHD like there's something wrong with him.
Well, I mean, I also don't want to diagnose him. But he's also, it appears that he seems to be like channeling it into different things. It's not like he's, he was also really fascinated by animals, and he was also really kind and gentle with them. He just loved every kind of animal. He learned about falconry and butterfly collecting, which
sounds like really interesting hyperfixations to me.
I know, right? Like, weird, but also tracks.
Yeah.
Absolutely tracks.
I love Lepidoptera. They're very cool.
You love what?
That's a scientific word for butterflies.
Oh my gosh, you're such a nerd. You couldn't just say I love butterflies?
I mean, yes and no. That's a wide thing. Like, maybe I just like pictures of butterflies. No, I like the actual flutterbys.
I don't. I hate them. And
because they're
uncontrollable flight patterns.
They're cousins of the moth.
Yes. Okay. So William also learned at a very young age that his family was not financially secure, which is not a great thing for a child to learn.
Sorry, I had to fact check it. Another reason I said Lepidoptera is because I was pretty sure it's butterflies and moths. So by saying I love Lepidoptera, I like them all.
I hate that word.
You hate the order Lepidoptera?
Yes.
I enjoy saying the word too.
I don't, because I can't pronounce it. Okay, so the family is
not well off. Probably another reason there's not 6 kids. Yes. And also probably good that there aren't 6 kids.
Yes. And part of the reason that they are struggling financially seems to be because his father, George, A, is not good at managing money, and B, spends their money on booze instead of paying the bills.
I was worried you might say that.
Yeah. And I don't get the idea that George was like a violent alcoholic or anything.
Just a drunk.
Just like, a guy who drinks and doesn't manage his family's money very well. So his parents fought about money a lot, and it's something William thought about a lot, and it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, you're a kid. You shouldn't have to be worried about your family's finances.
Yeah. Your job should be being a kid.
Yeah.
Learning about falconry and butterfly collecting and basic radio mechanics.
Yeah.
Like,
how stuff works.
Yeah. Just, you should be exploring the world.
Yeah. And this is a really, to me, a very heartbreaking anecdote that kind of emphasizes how William was thinking about his family's financial situation. So one time when he was young, I want to say he was like maybe 9 when this happened. He was with his dad. His dad took him somewhere, and I think his dad had to go like do some business, and William was on a playground, like a public playground, waiting or whatever. And while he was playing, he fell off of the equipment and broke his arm. And he like knew pretty immediately that his arm was broken, but he also knew that that was an expensive situation and that going to the hospital would be expensive. And so he didn't, and he, again, I don't think he was worried that his dad was going to be mad or like angry.
He didn't want
to put that burden. Yeah.
And he didn't want his parents to have to fight about money more.
Yes.
Oh.
So
No.
he sat under a tree and tried to reset the bones of his arm by himself. And thankfully, an adult worker of the park saw him and intervened and was like...
He's probably like screaming in pain
I
as
know.
trying to do it.
And like stopped this child from doing what he was doing and took him to the hospital, and like everything was fine. It was expensive. And William would later say, like, I'm still confident that if she hadn't intervened, I would have, like, been fine. And it's like, I mean, you would have probably kept your arm, but it probably wouldn't have healed correctly.
Yeah.
Like, ooh. So, another thing about William, when he was in 7th grade, he began to commit small burglaries. So, keep in mind, this is, like, probably around the time he's going through puberty. And likely a huge source of this was probably a combination of his family's chronic financial instability, but also there was kind of this illusion that, like, it started with that, but then also once he did it, there was kind of the thrill.
There was a rush.
And then he just kind of got addicted to the rush of it. So he just kind of became a little kleptomaniac.
Got some sticky fingers.
Yeah. And he started out small. He always stole from strangers. He never, like, stole from anyone that he knew. And he wasn't, like, violent. He wasn't going in armed. Like, this was always, he would go into a place that wasn't occupied. I don't even think he was, like, breaking into places. He was finding places that were unlocked and going in and taking things that he wanted.
Right.
Not good, mind you. Listeners, not good, but...
Not condoning it.
No. Still very bad. He described his methods as, quote, predictable. So he would, like, basically do it the same way every time. And he stole things like money, clothes, weapons, jewelry, radios, etc. And I say he stole weapons. He stole a lot of guns, but like there was one incident he stole like a neighbor's gun, which his parents like caught him doing, and his mom like confronted him about it. He's like, well, I wanted to figure out how it worked, and he wouldn't let me borrow it, so I just took it when he wasn't looking.
That's not how things work.
Which is like, yeah. And he wasn't using these. It's not like he was carrying them to intimidate people. He was just
interested in them,
taking them. He never attempted to sell anything that he stole. He just hung on to it.
Like a little dragon.
Yeah, like
sitting on
exactly.
his hoard.
He was just kind of collecting things. He was arrested for burglary for the first time at age 13. And because he was 13, he was sent to the Gibalt School for Boys in Terre Haute, Indiana. And I couldn't figure out how long he was there. It kind of sounded like maybe just for the summer or just for like a school term. But he did really well while he was there.
Structure, probably.
Exactly. He
The
earned
structure, the discipline,
the not being around places where you can just break, like not having access to a neighborhood that you can wander around.
Probably some other form of challenge for him to keep his mind occupied.
Yeah, exactly.
Brain and hands busy.
And like away from that family situation where he's not having to think about all of that. He earned the position of houseboy while he was there. And he made good grades. He generally stayed out of trouble. Like, everything you would want from, like, oh, you committed a crime. We're sending you to a reform school. Yeah. You're reformed. Yeah. Perfect. The system worked.
Except it didn't work outside of the system, did it?
Well, he got back and very quickly was picked up for burglary again. And this time he was sent to St. Bede's Academy. I think is how we say that. And this is in Peru, Illinois. Again, did really well. He excelled academically. He made a lot of friends.
I was worried you were going to say that he did awful there. Or that it's a terrible school or whatever.
No, he did great. However, when he came home for the holidays and for summer, he would pick up stealing again. So, like, really, it's when he's home and in this environment. Like, obviously, there's a pattern happening. In the summer of 1945, he took the entrance exams for the University of Chicago and passed. So I don't know if you did the math on that. He was 16 when he took the entrance exams and passed. And so he started classes at the University of Chicago as a 17-year-old.
Cool. I also started college at 17.
Damn, okay.
I mean, I turned 18 like 2 weeks later, but...
Oh, okay. I guess I had just turned 18 when I started college. But he was, like, definitely one of the youngest. Again, what I was reading made it sound like there were just a lot of... And I don't know if it was because of the time, because it was, like, end of the war, and there were a lot of young men coming back and going to college then. But, like, he had a roommate that was, like, 11, 13 years older than him. He was, like, by far the youngest person there. He started out commuting, like, from home to there, but eventually that just got too much, and he moved onto campus. He struggled a little bit academically just because college is a lot harder than high school.
Well, also, he did really well in those reform schools, which, again, structure, discipline, and then college lacks basically all of that. You are, like, you're in college, you're an adult, you have to rely on yourself. Like, there is no hand-holding, there is no whatever, like, it's all on you, and that's really hard for some people. Yeah. Myself included. I was not ready for college when I started. Yeah. Which is why I dropped out. And then, like 2 years later, I went back. Everyone told me I was... literally, I had people tell me, like, don't do that. You're stupid.
Jeez, how many people told you that in your life, Katie? Good grief.
Oh, probably too many. Lots of people told me I'm stupid.
Which is
more people
insane
told me that I'm, like, lazy.
You're one of the smartest people I know, which is insane. Oh my gosh.
I mean, most people said it was a stupid thing to do because most people who drop out don't go back. Yeah.
It's like taking a gap year, a lot of people.
There's only one person in particular that I really remember directly to my face telling me that I'm stupid. But he also eventually dropped out, and he never did go back to school, whereas I did, and I did really, really well. I was in an honor society. I made dean's lists. Like, I wasn't ready. I didn't know what I wanted to do, what I was there for.
And honestly... they should normalize that. Like, if
they do in Europe, that's the gap year is a thing.
We should normalize it here.
I agree.
Jarek, write that down. When we have a kid, make sure we don't pressure him or her to go to college right after high school. Because you're right. I remember being a freshman in college, because I think it's the end of your freshman year. They want you to declare a major, or the beginning of sophomore year. And I was like... I don't know. I guess teaching, maybe? I didn't want to do that. I changed it eventually, but did I do anything with the major I ended up with? No, I did not. I framed my degree.
Your certificate.
Sorry, I framed my award that I got from college. And it is on my wall, and it looks pretty, and it is in Latin, and I've done nothing with it. I hyperfixated on my major for 3 years, and then I didn't do anything with it. Mm-hmm. So take a gap year, everyone.
College is not the end-all, be-all. Yeah. It's not for everyone. I wish we could go back to days of apprenticeships, too.
Yeah.
Like, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
I know that there's internships, but that's definitely different than apprenticeships. Yep. And one thing I intend to do is when Walker gets older, especially if he has any kind of, inclination for anything kind of, mechanical or anything like that, I'm going to encourage a technical school, too. Be like, look, live at home. We'll pay for technical school, depending on what it is, like he could potentially start and own his own business,
Yeah.
So, and then, you could go to technical school, get a job because there's jobs out there. And then if he wanted to later go back to college and get a degree in something else like that, basically, that was never really, basically
an option. Presented as an option?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was never something that was presented in a positive light.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because
especially, like, my private school, everyone was expected to go, like, you're going to go to college, and you're either going to get a nursing degree, an MRS degree, or something else.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yep.
And then in my public school after Katrina, it was college or military.
Ooh.
It was basically it. Is what they would push on you.
Oh, I think it would be great if if you could learn what you actually wanted to do first and then figure out what kind of schooling or education you needed to make that your job. Because I feel like we were taught to do that completely backwards. It's like, go to school, learn some stuff, and try to make your life job work fit what you're learning, or that's how I did it, and I do nothing related to to what I learned. While
I understand and fully support being a well-rounded person, having a well-rounded education, and I understand that there's like, well, why do I need this math class if I want to be a writer or something? It's like, I understand that. Math is an exception. Everyone needs math.
Yeah, except I stand by the fact that I don't use any of the math or science I learned in college.
Probably not, but you still use some math.
Yeah, the stuff I learned in high school, absolutely.
I definitely did not need that, history class in college or that one... I think it was like a civics or it wasn't civics. It was.
I was gonna say I needed my civics class more than anything.
Yeah, I needed more of that, honestly. But no, it was like it was probably a literature class. I think it was. What's the word? You could either do like a history, or you could do something that was more literary.
Oh, I don't know.
Basically, it was where I read Dante's Inferno, except I didn't actually read it.
Oh.
I skimmed it.
Nice.
I read just enough passages in order to do the assignment, because it would be like, pick 3 passages and then, write a response to it. And I literally just fanned the book.
Nice.
It was like, here, I'll start reading here and I'll just read until it gets interesting or sparks an idea.
Yeah. Nice.
And I did well on that, actually.
There you go.
But I don't. Other than being good at Jeopardy now.
I learned how to bullshit so much stuff in college. That's how I learned how to, well, that's not how, but I credit that with why I feel like I'm good at writing resumes, because I know how to take something like, worked the cash register at this thing. I'm like, I can turn that into 5 bullet points and make you look, because I can bullshit my way through a research paper in a night. Give it to me. Anyway, I forgot.
Heck of a tangent.
I know. I forgot to tell you, you have a dossier. Your first picture is pictures of William. If you want to see him.
I was wondering when I was going to get my pictures.
Yeah, sorry. He's a little cutie patootie, too.
I was worried about that. He is cute.
I know.
Oh, he's handsome.
He's a little cutie.
I like that one.
I know. I didn't pick the one. There's one that always shows up whenever I Googled him, and I didn't like that one, so I didn't pick it. I picked the ones that were, to me, the most handsome. He's, and he was, this is what I was going to say. Part of the reason that he struggled in college was there were a lot of distractions. A lot of them were female in nature, and he did pretty well with the ladies because he was really
Color
cute.
me shocked. This isn't even, like, cute for the time.
I know, this is just, like, classically handsome. And he's, like, 17, mind you. But, yes. And there's, like, letters, like, that you can read where he literally...
He's got really nice hair.
I know, right?
I actually run my fingers through it. It looks like luscious locks, you know? Like... If I were to read somebody being, like, describing, like, and he had luscious locks that made you want you to run your fingers through it, this is what I would picture.
Yeah. He's one of those boys that has the good hair that you're like, ugh. And I use, like, 15 products on mine.
No sign of a receding hairline here.
There's a diary entry of his that's literally, like, I need to study, but I am so distracted by like, enter a name of current girlfriend or whatever.
Nice. Can I only look at these, or are there more can I look at yet?
No, not yet. In just a second, actually, because I'm about to change topics for a minute. Also, I literally made myself bleed with my fingernail. What's wrong with me? Okay, so he's in college. He did, because as you said, college is not as structured as these other places, so he did pick up burglary again.
Is probably something that, you know, that thrill, that high he got, he probably sought it out as, like, a source of stress release, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Like, he's probably stressed out. This college, this setting, it's a completely new experience.
Yeah. I mean, he did do it partly for financial reasons because he was having to pay tuition now. He did work. I mean, he had some jobs that he worked and was, like, making legitimate money. But he also really didn't want to burden his parents with tuition.
Well, I mean, even though college was affordable at this time, you could work a part-time job and pay for school. You know, it's still hard to balance work and school.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, this is just a fun little anecdote, but, like, he had stolen, like, a bunch of, I want to say savings bonds, but that's probably not the right word. But, like, check bonds or bond checks, essentially. But they weren't made out to him, so they had someone else's name on them. But he had also stolen at one point, like, a medical kit. And so he was, like, in the process of taking these checks that were made out for, like, various amounts of money and taking the scalpel and, like, slowly scraping off the person's name that they were addressed to so he could type in his own name. Very...
Frank Abagnale.
Yeah, it was like...
Or Abagnale. I forget how he pronounces it. But anyway.
But, like, very clever. Again, don't do that, anyone. That's still stealing.
Yeah,
but,
not endorsing.
No. but just creative, I guess. Okay. So, at this point, I'm going to press the pause button on William.
Gonna shift gears.
We're going to shift gears. Okay. Your next picture is of a woman named Josephine Ross. It's the only picture I could find of her, so bear with me. And she's the one on the left.
She looks like a witch.
Let me read you the description that I got of her. So she's 43. She was described as sturdily built with coarse features, although not unattractive. At the time we were encountering her, she had short, dark hair, and she had one blue eye and one brown eye.
Oh, makes her unique.
I know.
Interesting.
I feel like that would instantly make her, like...
Whoever is in the photo with her is very pretty.
I know. That is one of her daughters. So she lived in a modest apartment with her two grown daughters, Mary Jane Blanchard and Jacqueline Miller. Again, don't know which one that was. And this is in Chicago, where all of this is happening.
I assumed.
Yes. So Josephine had been recently widowed by her third husband, And she was in dispute with a life insurance company who believed that he had falsified some of his medical records. And they did not want to pay that.
It's
money.
an insurance company. Of course they don't want to pay.
Yeah. And
That's
so
basically their motto.
Yeah.
Give us your money under the guise of we'll pay when you need it, except we don't ever want to pay.
yes. So Josephine's like actively disputing that.
You pay us, not the other way
I
around.
know. She did not work because
Her job was getting married.
Yes.
And remarried and remarried.
Yeah.
No judges.
No. She was... I aspire to have this life, honestly. She was seeing two men. One was named Oscar Nordmark, who had recently proposed, although her daughters hated him. We don't like... I mean, I don't say we don't know enough about him, but her daughters didn't like him. They were like, Mom, quit bringing him around the house. Please don't say yes to him. Like, get him out of here.
He was probably creeping on the daughters, I bet.
And I get the impression too that he couldn't hold down a job. The other one was Chester Rice, who was her longtime lover, who she'd literally been with him through all of her marriages. I take it back. I'm not aspiring to be like that, but
no,
I'm just, I don't know. There's something I feel like I have some respect for this lady in the 1940s who's,
I mean, yeah.
I don't know, whatever. The only thing I found that was written negatively about him was that he was an ex-convict, but he seemed to be holding a steady job, and as we all know, I am pro ex-convict. I'm pro-convict here. As is evidenced by the 5 minute on my wall.
5 photos of men, by the way. She doesn't have 5 actual men hanging on her wall. Just want to clarify.
Oh gosh, yes. Both Oscar and Chester, however, were both heavy drinkers. So I take it back. I guess there was something wrong with Chester. Okay, so on Tuesday, June 5th, 1945, Jacqueline comes home from work around 1:30 p.m. and she finds their apartment in disarray. And then she finds her mother, Josephine, laying across the bed, dead. One of Jacqueline's dresses was wrapped around Josephine's head and then tied with a silk stocking, and there's a large amount of blood on the bed and walls. Examination by investigators would reveal that there were several stab wounds to her neck that had severed her jugular artery, and then there had been adhesive tape that had been wrapped around those wounds.
Eek.
Very weirdly.
Well, at least with the jugular, she probably bled out and died pretty quickly.
Yes.
So there's that.
There's also evidence of blunt force trauma, like she had been hit in the head with something. There was no evidence of sexual assault, so there's that.
Yeah.
And I know we're small victories.
I
in
was
these
literally
murders.
holding my breath, waiting for that.
In the bathroom, the bathtub was filled with 5 inches of water that obviously had blood in it. And then in that, they found a house coat, 2 towels, a roll of adhesive tape, a bra with the straps torn off, and then a douche bag with the hose and nozzle.
A douchebag with the hose.
Yeah. Which will come up again later. There were a couple dollars missing, but other than that, nothing else was missing from the apartment. So it did not appear that robbery was a motive. There were no fingerprints found at the scene. Obviously, police questioned Chester and Oscar immediately.
Yeah.
But both of them had alibis that were pretty solid. There were 2 witnesses to something. The janitor of the building described seeing, quote, a dark-haired, dark-skinned man descending the fire escape at around noon. And he described him as being about 190 pounds and wearing a light sweater. And then a neighbor down the hall described, quote, a slender, dark man wearing a white sweater and dark trousers, but did not see his face.
So when they say dark skin, do they mean black?
I don't know.
Or do they mean like olive complexion?
Unclear.
Like, or tan?
No one, who knows? Like, very few details.
So are they
racist
case. Or?
I don't know. I feel like this sounds terrible, but I feel like in 1946, if they meant a black man, they would have said something else.
That or something worse.
Yes. So I'm
going to... That's why I was like, are they racist? Because I feel like it would have been worse. That's why I'm thinking like...
It's 1946.
Dark skin as in racist. Like tan.
Yeah, like maybe olive complexion.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Because I mean, with his hair, like I would... Like, he's tall, dark, and handsome.
He is. He's swarthy. He's 17.
We need to stop.
So the police investigated what they could. They said that they were going to continue to follow up on leads that would come in. But by early August, the inquest into Josephine's death was closed. And Jacqueline and Mary Jane moved out of the apartment in the neighborhood. Okay, so that was in June. In December, so 6 months later, we have Miss Frances Brown, who is 33. Yes, she's your next picture. She was described as, quote, a petite brunette with the face of a movie starlet. And she was from Richmond, Indiana. So she'd been living in Chicago for just over 10 years and worked as a stenographer.
That's always a fun word.
That's like a typist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Usually in a courtroom.
That would stress me out so much.
Mm-hmm.
She lived in a 6th floor apartment with a roommate named Viola Butler, which sounds fake, but I'm sure it was real. And she was hoping to marry her, I said boyfriend, guy that she was dating. She was hoping to marry this guy named John Hathaway when he returned from his naval base in California, and also when he finalized his divorce. That's why I questioned boyfriend, because I'm not sure if they were really seeing each other or whatever.
Is he really gonna leave his wife for
her? That's what I'm like, oh. Because she was like, it was like, well, she was hoping he was gonna propose. And I'm like, I bet she was. I bet he said he was going to soon. And I bet his wife knew nothing about it. Okay. So on December 9th, again, 1945, Frances returned home shortly after 9:30 p.m., late night, after having dinner with some friends. Which, again, 9:30 p.m. seems so late to be coming home after dinner.
I was in bed before 9:30 the past 2 nights.
I was not because of family, but...
I was because of family. No, I'm kidding. Yes, technically that's true. Because toddler is exhausting.
Yes. So she comes home. Viola was out for the evening. She had gone out with friends and was not expected home that evening. So I don't know what Viola's up to.
Some judgies. Just kidding.
No. Viola's living her best life.
No judgies.
So when she got in, the night clerk of her building, I guess, tells her that she had received a call from a gentleman who declined to leave his name. John, maybe? Your boyfriend who's married? Not judging that at all. I'm sorry if it sounded judgy.
Oh, there's some judgies on that one. But only because we don't have all the information.
Yes, true.
That's why I'm like, some judgies, but, I'm still open. Like, we don't know the situation.
True.
Like, how married was he?
Truthfully, Jarek was married, technically, for a large portion of our relationship. Yeah. And didn't tell me for 6 months, but that's on him.
You guys have worked past that. Now it's just a funny anecdote.
Now it's a funny anecdote. It's fine.
Pull out.
And the night clerk did say that Frances seemed to not be surprised that she had received a phone call from a gentleman who hadn't left his name. So she goes up to her apartment. Before bed, she called her mother to let her know that she would be coming home for Christmas this year, which would be the first time in several years that she had gone home. The following morning, shortly before 9 a.m., a maid named Martha Ingalls discovered Frances's body. She was, quote, draped over the bathtub. So her head was at the bottom of the tub. Her legs were on the outside, kneeling on the ground.
I'm glad that I don't have to model things again this
yes,
episode.
This one's very
that one's
clear.
Self-explanatory.
Yes. Her head was wrapped in a towel, but she had been shot. She had not been stabbed. So she'd been shot in the head and shoulder. Oh, I lied. She had also been stabbed. Sorry. I didn't read my next bullet point soon enough. She was stabbed in the chest and the neck. Oh, I forgot about this part. I'm sorry. I should read my notes sooner. I did these notes like a week ago.
You need a refresher.
I should read through them before we do these. Okay, she was
That's
stabbed.
why when I do my episodes, it's usually like the day before.
I'm like, this is all a surprise to me.
Or I'm finishing up that day, and I'm like, we're gonna record my episode tonight. Surprise! Because it's all fresh in here.
Well, usually I do. I'm like finishing up stuff maybe like Friday, and then we'll record Sunday. These I finished on Tuesday, and then I had 20 people in my house. Okay, so she'd been stabbed in the chest and the neck, and the knife had been left in her neck. And it was a really big knife, so it was sticking out the other end. It was not good. There was a pajama top around her neck, and the bottoms were at her feet, but she also had not been sexually assaulted. So, small win. There was blood on the bed and pools of blood in the bathroom that had towels placed over them, like they had kind of tried to clean up a little. Similar to Josephine's crime scene, there was also a douchebag hanging from the bathroom door, and this had apparently been used to wash the blood off of her body. The apartment had also been ransacked, but nothing of value had been taken.
I have no idea what a douchebag looks like. I mean,
I don't either.
I may have dated one or two, but I don't know what they look like.
I don't either. Because I feel like I learned very on that we're not supposed to use them.
No, it's something that's still around. Like, I think you can still buy them.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, by the time I learned that douching was a thing, I was learning about you shouldn't do it because it's actually not hygienic.
I'm gonna look it up. Sorry, the very first thing that shows up is just two men.
Accurate, though. Accurate.
I'm sorry.
So it looks... I'm getting, like, douche, comma, enema.
Yeah, it looks like an enema was the first thing I thought of. And by the way, if you Google douchebag 1945, it does not give you useful results. It just gives you pictures of people. So they did eventually find a single smudged fingerprint on the door jamb of the bathroom. And a tenant on the second floor told police that he had heard gunshots between 3 and 4 a.m., which, sir, you are supposed to call those in. Mm-hmm. Especially if you hear them inside your apartment building. Mm-hmm. And the night clerk described a stranger leaving the building early in the morning around 4 a.m. He said he didn't recognize him, but he was between 35 and 40 years old, 5'6" or 5'7", and about 140 pounds, and seemed nervous.
That doesn't sound at all like the guy that we've been talking about.
Yeah. So
maybe some other stranger.
Who knows?
Left.
Police were able to determine that the killer had probably entered Frances's bedroom through the fire escape window. Mm-hmm. They briefly considered that the killer might have been a woman. And the reason they thought this was twofold.
Thankfully, the lack of sexual assault.
Yes. Well, that wasn't one of the reasons, but yes, we'll add that. They found among Frances's things a small collection of letters that had been tucked away that were written to Frances from a woman who, quote, obviously had a crush on her. And I would like to point out that we do not know what the letters in return sounded like, and maybe Frances had a little girlfriend. Like, I don't think letters from a girl having a crush on you implies that the person who killed you is a woman.
Well, remember, 1945.
That's true. They're like, oh,
all homosexuals are evil.
She may have been a lesbian, therefore, a lesbian probably killed her. Mm-hmm. They also thought that the wording of the message and the way it said, "for heaven's sake," sounded more like something a woman would say.
For heaven's sake.
I know. Like,
I was like, I need to try this in a girl voice. And I was like, I am a girl.
Don't use your voice, use a girl voice.
That's right.
Can we get Jarek out here to do the pitches of our voices again? So I can feel bad about mine.
At least you don't always sound permanently congested.
Yes, I do.
I am the most... If how I sound to myself is how everyone hears me, just constantly...
I don't think you sound nasally at all. I feel like I sound like a man. Every time I've ever heard my voice. Thank God this podcast has gone on for long enough that I hear it so often. The first time I learned that the way you hear your voice on a recording is the way that you actually sound, I wanted to cry. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's what I sound like.
That's what everybody hears.
That can't be right.
Also, a lot of times I can't tell the difference. Like, especially when I first started listening, I was like, wait, is that Hannah talking or is that me?
I like that we both just insulted each other. Because we were like, yeah,
my
voice sounds stupid. Our voices sound alike.
I hate the way I sound. Also, I can't tell if it's me or you. So I hate the way we both sound.
That sounds on brand for us. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the police ultimately decided that a man had to be the killer, probably, because of the height at which the letters were written on the wall.
Because tall women don't exist.
Yes, and because step stools don't exist. And the heavy-handedness with which they were written.
Also, that is some sturdy lipstick.
I know. I was thinking that. I was like, I wonder if that's one whole tube of lipstick or if it was multiple.
Because, I mean, the way that it...
I feel like you would run out after the second line.
I mean, it honestly looks like somebody, like, wrote on the picture. Like, this is just a random picture that somebody wrote on and then scanned it.
Right.
Like, it looks solid.
I mean, we all know that things were made better in the 40s. Well, yeah. I'm sure.
That's why I like Besame Cosmetics. They've actually been around since like the 20s.
Oh. I was going to say I have a tube of red lipstick that's like pretty cheap, and I don't like the shade of it on me because it's not my shade. If I was still redoing the parlor and I had walls that I just didn't give a shit about and was about to paint over, I would say that I could experiment and take that lipstick and see how much I could write out with it before it gave out.
Because, yeah, you've got to be careful with, because otherwise it's going to, like, smush and smear or break off.
Yeah. So you can't be that heavy-handed with it.
Also, I can just take it because I like red lipstick.
Oh, okay. Remind me. I'll give it to you. Okay. So, due to the similarities between Frances and Josephine's murders, police believed that they were looking for at least a similar perpetrator, if not the same one.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting to me is the head wrapping.
Yeah, that is weird. And I think someone said that, like, it gave the vibe of, like, the killer didn't want to look at what they'd done. And then with Josephine's, like, the tape around the wounds kind of implied, like...
Regret. Remorse.
Yeah. So, that brings us to Suzanne... Oh, man, I'm going to say her name wrong again. Oh, because I wrote it wrong. That's why. Wait, did I? Hold on.
Can I look at my next picture?
Yes. Let me make sure I didn't write her name wrong.
No.
I know. She's a cutie.
Degnan?
It's Degnan. That's what it is. Okay. I didn't write it wrong. I just can't read it properly. Degnan. Okay. Suzanne Degnan.
This is also a weird photograph.
I know. It looks like it's been, like, cut out and pasted somewhere.
Yeah. It looks like it was a photograph of her that they cut out, like, the silhouette and then put it on another picture.
Yeah, I had a hard time finding...
What is in the background? It looks like somebody in, like, a creepy cape and costume, like, lurking in the background.
Oh, jeez. I didn't notice that. I don't know. What a lovely scene to paste a picture of your child into. Okay, so this is the part of the podcast where I say, if you are someone who drinks alcohol and you've been having a drink, maybe refill your glass. And I'm sorry.
Good thing I refilled when I did, I guess.
I know. You have a sixth sense about these things. So, Suzanne was 6 years old. She was a strawberry blonde with blue eyes. She was 4'3" and weighed 74 pounds, which they went on about how she was, like, big for her age, which she's 6. Who cares?
She's 6 and 73 pounds?
74 pounds.
Big for her age, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to me.
I mean, she looks a little chunky, but also, like,
She looks like tall is the thing. She looks
Yeah.
tall and, like,
solid.
yeah.
I think-
What they would have said at the time was big boned or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. My only reference for 74 pounds is that's how much Kelly weighs. And I'm like, okay. But also, I'm like, I don't have a reference for 6-year-olds, so.
Because I remember it was a big thing for me when I hit 100 pounds.
Oh, not for
And
me.
I was much older than 6.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So.
Walker might be 74 pounds when he's 6 at this rate.
So she lived with her parents, Jim and Helen, say the name again.
Degnan.
I've written it wrong places. That's why it's confusing me. I've added an extra in. Okay, whatever. Degnan. Sorry. They lived on the first floor of a large apartment building in a wealthy neighborhood on the north side of Chicago. So they're well off. Jim worked for the Office of Price Administration, which was an organization that had been created during the war to control prices and rent. So this was the office that issued ration cards, like did price freezes, all that good stuff.
Keep from, like, gouging and monopolies and whatnot.
Yeah. And at the time, the OPA was meeting resistance from the meat and dairy industries because there was, like, black market meat situation. I don't know. They just, like, weren't super well. It wasn't a super well-liked organization. So
They thought it was a targeted crime.
possibly, yes. Okay, so on the night of January 6th, 1946, so just after Christmas into the new year, Jim and Helen came home with Suzanne and their other daughter, Betty, around 8:30 p.m., and they put both girls to bed. And they had gone into Suzanne's room shortly before going to bed themselves to take her to the bathroom because she used to wet the bed and they would just...
Well, she was, how old? She said 6?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've been reading up on potty training a little bit, and they say that a lot of kids aren't night potty trained until, like, 5.
Yeah, and they said this was, like, normal. Just before they went to bed, they'd go wake her up and take her and put her back down. And this was, I think, shortly before midnight. So, at 6:30 the following morning, Jim got up, and a short while later, he went to wake up Suzanne for school, because it was, I think, their first day back to school after the holidays. She wasn't in her room, and the door, which they had always left partly open for her, was closed. And her window, which they also always left, or they had left partially open, was all the way open. So he, at first, was like, maybe she is playing a trick on me and hiding. Let's look everywhere. So he got the whole family, he got their upstairs neighbors to help search, like, the whole apartment building. And when it became apparent that she was not hiding...
Not playing a game.
Nope. They immediately called the police.
Yep.
And because they are wealthy, well-off people, the police immediately came. So when the police get there, they found a piece of paper on the floor of Suzanne's bedroom that Jim had overlooked. And what I read said that it, quote, resembled a discarded tissue, and it had an oily residue on it. Which, you know, I'm like, gross. But it turned out to be a ransom note. And it said to get $20,000. Oh, sorry, this is a quote. Get $20,000 ready and wait for word. Do not notify FBI or police. Bills in 5s and 10s. And then on the back it said, burn this for her safety. And the word wait is misspelled in this. So, and I know everyone's wondering, $20,000 in 1946 is about $330,000. So, a modest sum for a ransom note, I think. I don't know, not $500,000. Whatever. And obviously, too late, the FBI and police are already involved. Yeah. But whatever. So that afternoon, Jim made a public plea to the kidnapper on the radio, which they've already started, obviously, a full investigation. This is so sad. He asked the kidnapper to take good care of Suzanne, and he told Suzanne to, quote, do as you're told, honey. He promised that they were raising the $20,000 in ransom money and that he had burned the note, which they hadn't, but he was like, I promise we burned the note, just like you said. Just, you know, like everything that you would expect a parent to say.
Yes, unfortunately, the police are involved, but that's because we didn't find the note until after.
Yeah.
So that's on us, but we're working on the money.
Yeah.
And
like, we'll cooperate.
The note. Like, yeah, we are cooperating. You set the demands. We will meet them.
Yeah.
Take care of our little girl. We just want her back.
Yes, exactly. It's like exactly what you would expect from a parent. So why can't I say this last name? Degnans. Thank you. I think I keep wanting to say the E with a different, okay. The Degnans, got a ton of phone calls that afternoon. Some people, it said, were asking about Suzanne. I don't know if that means it was like family and friends asking if they had found her. One of them was some guy who repeatedly was demanding the ransom money, which, go f*** yourself.
I hate the crazies out there that like feed on, you know, the people that what's the word I'm looking for? Say they did it.
Oh, false confessions or
the people that confess to crimes that they clearly didn't commit.
Yeah.
And
just for shits and giggles
or whatever reason. But
it's
it
like they just
upsets people more.
It's like they just thrive on the chaos of everything. The police were receiving tips. They were obviously conducting their own investigation. The only clue that they had found was a ladder outside the home that had been stolen from a nursery down the street. And the ladder would have been able to reach Suzanne's window, but there were no marks on the side of the building or windowsill or any residue on her bedroom floor. So there's not really any physical evidence. And then at 7:00 that evening, they got an anonymous call that suggested that they search the sewers. And so they did. And in the alley behind a neighboring building, the ground near one of the sewers had been disturbed. And when they looked inside, they found Suzanne's head.
Jeez.
No, I'm really sorry. And then more extensive searches of the sewers uncovered her left leg attached to part of her torso, and then the rest of her torso, and then her right leg.
Jesus.
Oh my
that is
gosh,
not
it's the worst time.
Damn it, Jarek.
Did we win?
Nope.
Jeez.
I hate that door.
Cry right now.
I'm gonna go home and hug my baby.
Okay, so police worked through the night, and by the following morning, the following afternoon, they had determined that the likely location where Suzanne's body had been dismembered was the basement of the neighboring building where they had first found her. And I will go ahead and tell you, they did determine that she was dead at the time of her dismemberment. So this building was on Winthrop Avenue, just 1 block from the Degnan home. And in the basement, there were 4 laundry tubs with evidence of human remains and hair in the drain of one of them. So, kind of spot on, obviously, crime scene. So, for evidence, they didn't find any fingerprints on the ransom note, which they thought it might have been a decoy, because obviously Suzanne was not ever going to be returned alive. And they thought it possibly could have even been written after she had been killed. They gave the impression that possibly there were some fingerprints found later. I'm not sure where they found them, but I don't know. They weren't on the ransom note. There was dirt on the bottom of Suzanne's feet, indicating that she had walked some distance outside of her house. There was a handkerchief with a loop of wire attached that they found. The wire had blonde hairs on it, and the handkerchief had the initials. It was either just the initials SS or it was S. Sherman, and also a serial number, which indicated that it belonged to someone in the military. And we'll get to that. The autopsy showed that she had been strangled to death, no sexual assault. And the dissection was performed with extreme precision and had been done using a sharp knife. And this is a quote, I believe, from the coroner. The killer had to be an expert in cutting meat because the body was separated at the joints. Not even the average doctor could be so skillful. It has to be a meat cutter. And they would later say, or a surgeon, or, but, they very much emphasized this wasn't just, a random,
They had a culprit or generalized culprit in mind already, and they were making everything fit to it.
Yes. So,
based on your job and the beef you've got going on with the meat industry, yes, pun intended, is probably somebody there.
Yeah. So, a woman named Frida Myers lived directly above the laundry room, and just after 3:40 a.m. on the night of the murder, she had heard footsteps in the walkway leading from Winthrop Avenue to the alley, which is where the sewers were. The footsteps passed underneath her window toward the laundry room, and this repeated 4 or 5 times back and forth, with a longer time elapsing in between each, back and forth. But she didn't, look, because A, she's a woman and it's 3:40 in the morning, and she's smart, and I think she just thought, it could be dangerous. I'm not going to look, and also, it wasn't.
It's just footsteps.
Yeah, she's a woman. She's like, it's not dangerous enough to call the police, but it's too dangerous for me to investigate myself. We've all been there. A neighbor named Robert Frutal at 3 a.m. saw a gray car parked on the wrong side of the road about 100 feet from the Degnan home.
What are people doing away at 3 a.m.?
I think he was getting ready to leave for work. He had some job he had to be at.
At the meat processing plant.
I think he did have a shop that he had to open or something. I don't know. He said the driver was wearing a light overcoat and was bent over in the front seat like he was handling a package. Several people reported seeing a gray car driving up and down the street around 2:30 with a man and a woman in it. And someone named Albert Johnson saw a woman carrying, quote, a bundle in both arms getting into a car. Which I just want to point out, 74 pounds is heavy. I can barely carry Kelly.
That's a lump sum.
It's so terrible.
Not multiple bundles.
Oh,
but I don't like the description of carrying a bundle.
Well, but if you're thinking in theory, if it was close to their home, close to where she had been taken, I mean, I'm just saying, if she's carrying Suzanne before, or right after she's been murdered, you're going to notice someone struggling, as I would be carrying my 74
you're a
pound.
wimp.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
I'm actually a lot stronger than I was 12 months ago.
You have to be. Lyra is hard work.
Weirdly enough, several months earlier, there had been an attempted kidnapping of Suzanne in broad daylight. While she was returning home from school, 2 men had driven up and tried to force her into their car. But she had screamed, and they had run away. And this was, I think, thought to be, like, that was very clearly thought to be motivated by
his work.
Yeah, his work. So a lot of people speculated that because she had apparently not screamed on the night of her kidnapping this time, that she had possibly known her attacker. And this also could have explained why there was little evidence that the ladder had actually been used, because people were like, well, maybe if it was someone she knew, they came through the house and came, like, maybe the window was just a decoy also. And police also speculated that carrying...
You said they're on the first floor, right?
Yeah, which...
So how high is this window? Like, I understand it might be... You might still walk up several steps.
Yeah.
So it's higher than, like, just there on the ground, but...
I wondered that, too. And I think they said the ladder was, like, a 7-foot ladder. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know.
Because I'm imagining, like, an apartment building that you have to walk up, like, you know, as high off the ground as, like, my house.
Yeah.
So walk up several steps, because I imagine there's probably a basement in this apartment building that they've probably got, like, maybe washing machines, or definitely just, like, some extra storage.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of apartment buildings in big cities have basements specifically for laundry and storage for large items for tenants and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, that could have been the case because it wasn't a super long ladder. They said it would have just reached her room. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know, I guess high enough that he would have needed a ladder and couldn't have just climbed in. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Well, so a 7-foot ladder doesn't mean it's 7 feet off the ground.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's true. They would have to, on an incline.
The ladder would be the hypotenuse.
Yeah, true. Okay.
See? Math.
Math. They speculated that carrying a 74-pound child down a ladder, regardless of the height, would require possibly more than 2 people, or more than 1 person.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm also thinking the lack of screaming. If someone had snuck into her room, she would have to be, you know, like, they would have had to been very quiet about it. Mm-hmm. And I'm imagining, like, chloroform.
Yeah.
So you said possibly knew her attacker. My brain went first to, no, they chloroformed her.
Yeah. That
Caught her unawares. Chloroform.
Yeah. The other option, obviously, is that it was just purely coincidental that there's 2 kidnappings that happened. There were some weird-ass notes that happened after they found her body. So there was an anonymous note that read, Mrs. Degnan is responsible for her child's death. The Degnan child was killed by accident in her room that night. I don't know who the f*** wrote that. A former friend wrote, quote, you can surely believe the father of the Degnan child is not innocent. If you only knew... you surely cannot believe the father of the Degnan child is innocent. If you only knew the temper he has, he would do anything when he is in a bad mood. We who know him are not surprised at what happened. Which I would say, I'm sorry, if you are not surprised that his child ended up
Why haven't you reported that?
Yeah, like, this is a horrifically grisly crime. You should be very surprised regardless of what his temper is like when he's drinking.
And if you are like, oh yeah, nope, saw that coming, why are you associating? Why haven't you, like, put in some...
Also, there's another child in that house. Like, they've got another kid.
If you are not surprised by this horrible, horrible violence, why haven't you gone to CPS and been like, I think this person is a danger to both of his children?
True.
Like, you can file reports, you can file them anonymously, and people will go out and actually investigate.
Yeah.
That was something that was happening on one of the mom groups I'm in on Facebook. Ooh. Is someone's mother-in-law has filed multiple, at this point, false reports to CPS anonymously.
Jeez. Oh my gosh.
Like, just outlandish stuff. And I don't know the details, but apparently it's, it's multiple, they've had CPS come out to investigate multiple times because of, quote, anonymous tips, making these very outlandish claims. And she's like, I 100% know it's my mother. No, maybe it was a sister-in-law. I don't remember.
Jeez.
It's mother-in-law or sister-in-law. And, like, she's like, I don't...
Oh,
like,
my
what?
gosh.
She's looking for her, like, legal course of action. She's like, at this point, like, we know we've cut off contact with this person. And so, anyway, if you know someone, if you know something, say something.
Yeah. I mean, CPS, I don't know when it became a thing that you could do that.
That's true.
But also, I do think it's insane that this person is just like, we aren't surprised. I'm like, you should be. You should be extremely surprised that this happened to anyone. Like, this is awful. This guy named Walter Storms, who I think is the chief of police, he received an anonymous note that said, quote, "Why don't you catch me? If you catch me," spelled Ketch, "if you catch me soon, if you don't catch me soon, I will commit suicide. There is a reward out for me. How much do I get if I give myself up? When do I get the $20,000 they wanted from that Degnan girl at 5901 Kenmore Avenue? You may find me at the Club Tavern at 738 East 63rd Street, known as Charlie the Greeks, or at Conway's Tavern at 6247 Cottage Grove Avenue. Please hurry now."
Well, okay then. I wonder if the misspelling is intentional, because there's no misspelling in that the lipstick note.
Yeah.
And also...
But there was a misspelling in the ransom note.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So...
I don't know.
I'd also like to see a handwriting comparison.
Yeah.
Because to me, that handwriting seemed very distinctive.
Yeah.
Also, I wonder, like, I know that back in the day, they used to publish everything.
Right. Yeah.
Like, oh, so-and-so, we interviewed so-and-so about the price of eggs.
Yeah.
So-and-so, and then would put their home address.
Yeah, like list. Yeah.
So, him knowing Suzanne's address.
Yeah.
I wonder, is that, like, knowing intimate details of the crime?
Or just something they
just
printed.
read the newspaper.
Yeah, yeah. I love they talk about that in the Dollop all the time, where it's like, they'll report on, like, this woman was assaulted. She lives at this address alone.
Yeah.
It's like,
go assault her again.
It's like,
jeez,
okay. Mayor Kelly received an anonymous note. Not my dog.
Start calling her Mayor Kelly.
She's the mayor of my heart. And that note said, "This is to tell you how sorry I am that I couldn't get old Degnan instead of his girl. Roosevelt and OPA made their own laws. Why shouldn't I, and a lot more?" So again, implying that it had to do with Jim's job. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if they thought at this point that Josephine and Francis's murders were related to Suzanne's murders, and that this person was just escalating in violence, or if they were just so jarred by, like, the graphic violence of Suzanne's murder.
The MO is so different.
Yeah.
Francis's murder seemed like an escalation of Josephine's, but it was still, like, there was enough similarities that you can be like, okay, yeah, no, like, that was his first one. Mm-hmm. And, maybe it was a little less than premeditated. Mm-hmm. Whereas this, and, it's like this next one, it was, he learned some things for the first one and adapted and escalated a little bit, hence the note.
Yeah.
This is a completely different MO.
Yeah.
Like, the victimology is
Completely
wildly different. The murder technique.
Yeah.
Wildly different.
Yeah.
There's just this is, I wouldn't have connected them. The only thing that to me would have potentially connected is some of the notes or whatever.
Same. That's what I was thinking. And also, I don't know if it's just because those were also two violent, unsolved murders, and they were like, we have at least a murderer that's still out there, and now we have this other one that we're trying to find.
I feel like it's more comforting to think of one crazy person out there
that you just have to catch one, and it's all taken care of,
and wrap it up neatly with a bow, as opposed to 3 separate, because 3 murderers is a lot scarier than just one real bad guy.
Yes, it is. So the police were arresting like everyone. They would just arrest anyone they suspected, and
anyone that went at either of those taverns.
Yeah. Anyone who could cut up meat or whatever. And every time they arrested like a solid sounding suspect, they would like announce to the public, like, we've got him. We've got the killer. Like, it's fine.
Was Warden Dumbass working for the Chicago Police Department at this time?
Probably. I forgot to tell you, that guy, Walter Storms, was actually Warden Dumbass. Warden
Dumbass.
Warden Storms Dumbass. So.
Warden Dumbass's brother.
Do you remember that handkerchief that they found?
Yep.
Okay, so they tracked down the owner of said handkerchief. They tracked it down to a Sidney Sherman, who was a recently discharged Marine. And they found out that he had recently moved out and quit his job without collecting his last paycheck. And they were like, ooh, red flag. So, massive manhunt. Like, all the alarm bells. They find this guy in Toledo, Ohio, 4 days later. This man is on his fucking honeymoon because he eloped with his girlfriend. And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Also, that is not my handkerchief. They made him take a polygraph. He passed. And they were like, our bad. Sorry.
Go back to your honeymoon.
Yeah, sorry. The real owner of the handkerchief turned out to be a guy named Seymour Sherman, who was a pilot from New York. He was out of the country when Suzanne had been murdered, and they found him and tracked him down. He's like, no idea how my handkerchief ended up there. I was on another continent, or I don't know where he was. Could have been in Canada or Mexico. He's like, I was not here. I verified, I wasn't here. I don't know. And they were just like, oh well, I guess this piece of evidence was a red herring. We don't know. At some point, police arrested a man named Hector Verberg, who was a Belgian immigrant, and he was the janitor who worked in the building where Suzanne lived. And despite being known to nearly everyone as a, quote, sweet grandfatherly old man, police arrested him and then publicly said, we've got him, the killer. The evidence that they had, let me give you the solid evidence. He frequented the, quote, murder room, aka the laundry room, of the building where he was the janitor.
So I'd say, the janitor was in the laundry room?
And, Katie, shocked. and his hands were dirty and the ransom note was dirty.
A janitor had dirty hands?
You see where I'm getting at?
But he cleans. He should be clean.
Right? See how they clearly are connecting the dots like very smart policemen? See?
Oh my God, why aren't we detectives? At least in the 1940s.
I know. Because we were women. We were stenographers.
Oh, yeah. And secretaries.
Or
wives.
Oh, true.
Again, no judging.
I'm literally a secretary.
I'm literally just a wife.
You're describing our jobs.
So obviously no judges. But hey, I was a scientist for a while.
You still are a scientist in my heart.
I'm excited to be a teacher soon.
So police arrested this man, held him for 48 hours.
Because you can't hold him for longer.
Brutally beat the shit out of him.
You can't do that.
While questioning him about the murders.
That's not how interrogation works. Outside of the mob.
According to Hector, they would handcuff him and hang him by his arms The way he described it was they would handcuff him behind his back and then hang him by his fucking arms. Blindfolded him. They would leave him in a cell without food, all this stuff. He suffered several injuries, including, shocking, a separated shoulder.
I was about to say, dislocated shoulder.
He had to be hospitalized for 10 days. So 10 days in the hospital after he was finally released.
After he was, quote unquote, questioned.
Yeah, questioned. And it was later determined, because he's from
Why
Belgium.
do people want to come to this country?
I know. It was later determined that his English wasn't good enough to have written the ransom note in the first place. And the only silver lining in this is that he and his wife eventually sued the Chicago Police Department and won for $15,000.
Heck yes.
Which is $250,000 today.
Awesome.
So, thank goodness for that. But also, you Chicago Police Department. Good grief.
Wish they'd sued you for more.
Golly. I'm just what? I'm sorry. You did what to this, gentle old man? You thought what? On what evidence? Oh my gosh. Okay, so Suzanne's family buried her remains on January 11th, and on January 19th, or sometime in February, according to other sources, her arms were recovered, unfortunately.
I forgot that they didn't recover all of her.
But the family buried her, and then they're like, we're going to Maine to spend some time with family.
Yeah. So they go decompress.
They got out of there. And by April, the police had questioned and cleared 370 suspects. And that's where I'm going to leave you, because this is a two-parter.
I was wondering, what in the hell? How...
You're like, how are we going to wrap this up?
How do we get back to Cutie McGee? I mean...
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's a...
Cutie McPossible Murderson.
It's a two-parter. And I will say...
You bitch.
That I learned about this story, from our Richard Speck episode. Because it's...
Our Dick Speck?
Yeah. Because it's 1946 in Chicago. So it's 6 months from when he's about to...
Oh, go after those nurses.
Yeah, murder 8 women, 8 nurses. If y'all want to hear part 2, come back for more. And don't Google this and ruin the story for yourself.
Also, don't Google the biggest douchebags in military history.
And ruin Katie's future episode.
Yeah. I don't know how much of that is going to get left into the final episode, because we went on we just kind of stopped talking to each other. We went on a little Google rabbit hole. Yeah. So I don't know what Jarek is going to leave in and cut out. But, don't Google that, because...
And don't Google douchebag 1945, because that will bring the same results.
That will bring you to my future episode.
Same thing, yeah.
So, instead, what you should do is you should go to our Facebook and Instagram at the Tales We Tell podcast to see the pictures for today's episode, and just look at that. Don't Google anything about this.
Yeah, don't look at anything else.
Don't Google these people. If you want to see pictures, Facebook and Instagram, the Tales We Tell podcast, or if you don't do the social media and you still want to see the pictures, thetaleswetellepodcast.com. Everything that we post on social media goes there too. And if you want to support us and get yourself some sweet, sweet swag, or, just go ahead and send this episode to a family member as a, hint, hint, nudge, nudge of Christmas presents, check out our Redbubble store. Search The Tales We Tell. We've got several different logo designs. You can put that on anything. Mm-hmm. And if you want to support us but you don't need the stuff, you can become patrons at patreon.com. Search The Tales We Tell. You get early access, commercial-free listening, sometimes some fun bonus content, stickers, love notes. We need to send out Christmas cards, don't we?
Ooh, yeah, which means we have to take a Christmas picture. Okay. You're not pregnant in this one.
Yeah. It's just, I'm not pregnant.
Which you weren't pregnant last year and we didn't do one.
No.
Did we?
No.
So,
I was just the mother
we just forgot.
Anyhow.
Anyways.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, it's Hannah. I wanted to quickly ask If you are enjoying the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It goes a long way in getting the show in front of other listeners. If you listen on a platform that doesn't do reviews, please follow us on social media, like the show, or leave a comment. Thank you. We love you guys, and we hope you enjoy the show.